All right, guys, we have David here from Nashville, Tennessee, who recently passed his ACE exam. And David, I have to say, you have been a pretty strong contributor in the group. I know I've seen some of the comments and posts, and you've been really supportive through the process. So we want to, one, thank you for joining us tonight, and thank you for providing support in the group.
Well, yeah, I appreciate it. And I think that started out as anxiety because I was freaking out, not knowing what I got myself into. And now that I'm on the other side, I'm thinking, okay, if I can help anyone out there who's like me, I will gladly do it because I know what that feels like. And I know what those sleepless nights are like. So if I can cure that for anybody else just a little bit, I'm all about it.
I think you're going to. I'm gonna pull some of that information out of you to help some of these folks out. Now, guys, this is one of the first time David actually does interviews too. So he's got like this professional setup. I love it. This is the first time having that.
Yeah, professional, and I also have my cat behind me. So a little professional, a little unprofessional. But yeah,
combination.
I'm not used to being on the other side of the mic, so this is kind of a cool experience.
Really cool. Well, listen, thank you for joining us from Nashville, Tennessee. And so let's dive right into it, David. How long ago did you pass the ACE exam?
It happened this past Friday.
This past Friday.
Just a few days ago. Yes.
Okay.
A little less than a week ago.
Okay. Awesome. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
How long did you study for from beginning to end?
It was 10 weeks. I went back and looked and I actually surprised myself. I had originally planned on it being 4 to 6 months.
Okay.
And then things started getting a little faster and accelerating. And then the turning point, I purchased that sale that you guys were doing, the BDU sale. And when I got my hands on that study guide, it accelerated things even more because it cut my time in half, which, you guys make that claim, it cuts your time in half. And I'm like, okay, Leah, let's see if it really does. It does. So that suddenly I went from 4 months to 3 months to, I realized, wow, I'm doing this in 10 weeks.
Really cool. Really cool. We do hear that often, for sure. And I didn't even realize, I totally forgot. You actually did purchase the BDU prep for the ACE, went through the process. That's right. And were you able to connect with Doug?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It was like having Doug on speed dial, which was like, and I peppered him with so many questions and he would get right back to me. And sometimes he would, give me, just what I was looking for. And other times he'd give me a longer explanation that made me dive in even deeper. And so one of the things I actually told him afterwards, I said, he didn't just give me the answers. He told me how to find the answers and use the answers. And so that even revolutionized my process where I felt like I wasn't just learning like trivia. I was actually learning practical application.
Really cool. Okay. Well, good to know. Let's dive right into it. Your top tip, number one, that you would recommend to anyone that's studying right now for the ACE personal trainer exam.
Yeah, this doesn't necessarily talk about the content itself, but I would start off by saying set boundaries and don't get overwhelmed. That book can eat you alive if you look at it as this is an 800-page textbook that I have to devour. If you do that, you're going to have a tough time with it. I looked at it, I struggled with this, but I had to break it down to a day-by-day thing. The 5 pages I was doing for that day, I didn't need to know the whole textbook, but I needed to learn those 5 pages. And so that really helped me with that. And the other side of that too is there are so many resources out there. Everybody is selling something about this. And Corey, I don't even know how this happened, but I have a guy that calls me every week trying to sell me this $300 package on how I can pass the exam, even though I've already passed it. Yes. I don't know how he got my number. He'll call me and say, hey, I just sent you an email. And I'm like, okay. But there's so many things out there. I noticed a lot of these things say like pass the ACE exam in a week. I'm like, okay, now maybe that's possible. And maybe it is. I don't know if it is or not because I didn't do that. But something came back to me because it is tempting to go for that. But I had a professor in college and he said, I have students in my class that get an A and remember nothing. I have students in my class that get a C and remember everything. If you're going to be one of those students, be the C student. And that stuck with me because I thought, I could pass this ACE exam and learn nothing. And what's it gotten me? It's gotten me a piece of paper and a certification. If I can slow down a little bit and actually retain the stuff and learn it, I've actually got something useful to use in the process. And so that's where Body Design University came in for me as more helpful because you guys want to help people pass the exam on the first time, but you're not trying to sell us something as like a get rich quick scheme, essentially, where, hey, here's in 7 days, here's exactly what you need to know for the exam. That's not doing anybody any good. And then you have trainers out there that don't know what they're doing and don't know their stuff. So that again goes along with the whole setting boundaries, don't get overwhelmed. Really
give us an example of the boundary. Was it the 5-page per day? Is that the boundary that you're talking about?
Yeah. When I first started, I was looking for every free moment I had to crack open the book. And I'd do like, okay, 5 pages here. And then I was like, oh, I have 15 minutes. Okay, I can do 2 more pages here. And then I'd be like, okay, I have 30 minutes before bed. I could do that. And I realized I was exhausted. I was so mentally exhausted that I couldn't function well for work the next day. I didn't have any energy to play with my kid. And so I finally had to realize, you know what? I've got this 45-minute slot today or 30-minute slot. I'm going to study for this period of time. And then I'm closing my book, I'm putting it up, and I'm not going to look at it again. And when Sundays came around, I said, you know what? Nope, I don't need to do this. I'm taking some time off. And so for me, it was really setting those boundaries and those limits. That actually was healthier for me because I really wanted to just get through as fast as possible. But it wasn't going to be good for me. And I was going to hit burnout very quickly.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. Let's go on the tip number 2.
This kind of comes down to knowing what you need to know. And I'll bring up 2 things right here with anatomy and postural assessments. Those are huge. Now, when I got to the chapter on anatomy, I think I was at chapter 8. That's when everything was just like, oh, this doesn't make sense. It's not connecting for me. And I got overwhelmed. And I had people tell me, hey, push through it, come back to it, you'll be okay. And what I realized is, and I hesitate to say this, but know what you need to know. And what that means is you may not need to know every single thing that's in the skeletal system. You may not need to know every single muscle in the body. Now, these things are very important, though. And there are certain things you do need to know, but don't get bogged down. You can move through it. And I've noticed that the important things usually show up in tables through the rest of the book, and they'll show up in quizzes later on. And so you may see a certain muscle show up in a compensation table later on. And that really helped me because I decided, okay, I'm just going to push through. And then once I started getting to other chapters, I realized, okay, this is actually clicking and making sense. And okay, for some reason, lordosis and kyphosis and forward head keep showing up over and over again. And so that really that's when I started realizing, okay, ACE is putting these things in here again and again for a reason. There's certain things in here. And I've joked with people about with some of like, the muscles and bones, I couldn't tell if I was reading Latin or reading dinosaur names because it kind of looked like that. But there are certain things that you see over and over. I mean, you can have a pretty good idea. You need to know the biceps. You need to know where the hamstrings are and what the hamstrings do and things like that. And so that really helped me. And then something that that was really big for me on the same thing is the terminology. Things like overactive, underactive, tight, lengthened, hypertonic, hypotonic, inhibited. Know what those mean and where they apply, because you may never know which terminology is going to be used on the exam. And so once I learned all that stuff, everything kind of started clicking. And then I kind of, there were times I would go back, but really the book builds on itself. And I know Doug talks about that a lot, that you see the IFT model show up over and over again. And so you may not get it in chapter 2, but by the time you get through chapter 11, you're going to understand it. And so that was really important. And then even on top of that, I'd say chapters 3 and 4, behavior change and effective communication, know that stuff. And know that stuff really well and specific. Some of that stuff seems like common sense. And I'm glad, though, I didn't take it for granted and think it was just going to be common sense for me, because you start looking at stuff and, things like affirmation and compassion and acceptance, they all kind of start blending together and running together. But when you start understanding how ACE puts it and how the words they use to describe it, it really gives you a better understanding. So it kind of like I'd say that all flows under the umbrella of know what you need to know. And ACE does a good job of letting you know with those subtle hints over and over what you really need to know.
How do you feel like you actually learned it, David? So know what you need to know, but let's just give these guys a tip on your learning style, what worked for you. Like, so let's just say, you need to know lordosis or, whatever it might be, a movement. How did you feel like you learned it or retained it best?
Yeah. So my job, I work as a senior editor for a publishing company. So reading retention is kind of one of my strengths. I have to do that every single day. So that helped me. I know not everyone has that luxury, but aside from that, I realized that I think we all fall into those three learning styles in some way. We all have a little bit of it.
Mhm.
And so I had to visualize it. Of course, this sounds like a broken record with everybody, but watching Doug's videos really help.
Mm.
One, like I said, I didn't want to get too many resources in here, but one thing I did is I had an Audible credit, and there was a CPT Prep, an Audible book that kind of
Mhm.
breaks down. I listened to that some when I was out walking and working out. And so hearing it over and over helped me, but then I actually just had to get into the book and look at it. Sometimes I went on YouTube videos and saw that. Sometimes
Mhm.
it was me actually straining my head forward and then trying to tell myself, okay, this is what it is,
Mm.
repeating it over and over, saying it out loud. I came up with some of the craziest mnemonic devices out there. I mean, and they're so weird. I'd be embarrassed to mention them, but like Brady cardia. I'm thinking, okay, that's slow. Tom Brady. Tom Brady is the slowest quarterback in the NFL. There we go, under 60 beats per minute, stuff like that. But it helped. And
Whatever
so,
works,
yeah,
man.
when I did
Whatever
my
works.
exam, I'm sure the proctor was looking at me thinking, this guy's talking to himself and this guy's crazy, but it came back to me when I needed it. So stuff
Cool.
like that, just seeing it, hearing it, saying it, and those mnemonic devices helped a lot.
Okay, perfect. Real quick, did you do it in person or is the proctor remote?
I did it Proctor remote, and I happened to do it the day after Scantron shifted everything over to a new like server.
Okay.
That was a bit of a nightmare, but
Mm.
I don't think they were quite prepared. I think I had a proctor who was brand new. He was accidentally sharing his screen with me instead of taking my screen, and he couldn't remember his login.
Oh boy.
Their server dropped when I was on about question 21, and for about 3 minutes I sat in silence thinking that it's over. I'm done. But it all turned out okay. So it
Yeah.
was a little nerve wracking, and I'm assuming that the bugs will be worked out by the time other people do it. I just had to be a guinea
Yeah.
pig.
Yeah. I
I
got
also took it in this room where I also did my studying. And I know
okay.
psychologically they say that helps when you can take an exam the same place where you've studied. So
That's a good tip. Haven't heard that one. All right, cool. Let's move on to number 3. What would be your next top tip?
yeah, that's the exam itself when you're taking it. Just some study tips that I've learned in the past from being in school. One thing was when I would read the question, I would always try to think of the answer before I looked at the choices,
Mm.
because if I thought I knew the answer, then when it showed up in the choices, it really kind of affirmed that for me. If there was a video, I would read the question, watch the video, and then look at the choices, because that way when I was watching the video I knew what was being asked and I could kind of think about the answer. I'd get the answer in my head, and then I'd look and say, okay, yep, that's exactly what I was thinking. I'd think about it a little bit again, and so that helped. I would tell people, read the questions very carefully, and people in the group said this over and over, and I'm so glad they did. um, but sometimes there would be two great answers, not
Mm.
one great answer and one good answer. There would be two great answers, but there might be one single word that would make the difference.
Mm.
And sometimes I would look at those things for 2 minutes long. I'm like, okay, there has to be some nuance here. That's what it was. Going along with that, people, when you read through what's going to be on the exam, they talk about how there are those 25 research questions that are there that don't count. They don't
Mhm.
tell you what those are. Now, I don't know this for sure, but I am convinced that mine were front loaded, and
Mhm.
15 of the first 25 questions at least were research questions that were really, really hard.
Mm.
So about 25 questions in, I thought, I'm done. This is not work. No, I'm bombing
Mm.
this. There's no chance. But something that I kept telling myself, and I planned this before I even took the exams, I thought, if I see something that looks so out of left field, I'm going to tell myself in my head, this is a research question. This one doesn't count. I'm going to do my best, but it does not matter. And then I'll go on to something I know. And
Mm.
so when I was close to that panic attack, when I was like, I don't know any of this, I just kept telling myself, no, you're getting research questions right now. This isn't going to be a big deal. Once I started getting on, I thought, okay, now this stuff looks familiar.
Mm.
I've seen this stuff before. And then kind of going on with that familiarity, just the last part of the whole exam itself, I would tell people, use the quizzes that ACE provides. My
Mhm.
package came with 2 practice tests. There were the section quizzes on the portal. There were the chapter quizzes and the study companion. I totaled those up, and they came to over 400 questions just that
Mm.
ACE provided me. And that doesn't
Mhm.
even count what I use from body design.
Mhm.
So some of those questions may show up, they may not show up. You may see variations of those, something very similar. But I really came away thinking ACE was not trying to trick me on this. This was not a
Mm.
bait and switch where I took the exam and went, I've never seen this before. That happened with a few. I'm confident they were research questions, but I felt like they were kind of giving me breadcrumbs all along to follow and saying, we're showing you what this is like. We don't want you to be surprised or scared. We want you to be prepared.
Awesome. Really cool. Well, David, those are some great tips. Now, let me ask you, if somebody's studying right now and either they're at a stall or, they're getting really anxious, what are some words that you might have of encouragement to help these guys through the process? Just overall, maybe mindset.
I would say kind of what I said at the beginning, don't get overwhelmed. Don't let it get in your head too much. Don't let it take control of every other aspect of your life, your health, your sleep, your family time, anything like that. But believe in yourself, know you can do it, but also ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask questions. If something doesn't make sense, ask. I mean, I had a question that I asked Doug, and the next day there's a new video that's out explaining it. And it was something I was struggling with, something I found out I was spending way too much time focusing on. And Doug put a video out explaining it. So ask questions. People that have been there before and done it, like, we're not going to give answers to the test. That's against the code of ethics. And not to mention, there's a good chance you'll never see the same question I did. But
that's right.
People that have been through this can help you with that. And so don't be afraid to ask for help. Some people think asking for help is a sign of weakness. I believe it's a sign of strength, because I believe we're all in this together. And I believe that endears us to one another and it connects us to one another. But yeah, don't be afraid to ask for help. But also, there's so many good resources out there, specifically body design. And you did not ask me to do this, but I'm going to make a pitch for you guys with the package that you have, because using that study guide was a huge help for me. Using Quizlet, having that direct access to Doug. I mean, it was essentially this. It was almost like I could pick up my phone and text him and he would get right back to me. It costs a little bit of money, but if I saved, I don't know, did I save 10, 12 weeks maybe of study? I mean, you can't really put a price on that. And what you guys are charging is so much less than the guy that's calling me on the phone.
Right.
So yeah. So that's what I would say. Yeah.
Well, we really appreciate that. And thanks for, just sharing your experience with it. Would you recommend, I'm guessing that, I hear the answer there, but would you recommend the prep to other folks, whether they're just getting started or they've been studying for a while? The prep
absolutely.
That we do.
I debated it for a long time and for weeks. And I finally got in when you guys were saying, like, 1 hour left before the deal goes away. And I was like, okay, I got to do this. And I knew that I would feel better and I would sleep better if I did it. And so I thought, for the cost that it was there, I thought, this is nothing compared to my mental state, my well-being going forward. And I also will say this on top of that. And I told Doug this the other day, it is absolutely ridiculous how much you guys give away for free. That is not happening with other organizations. It's a sign of your character and the character of Body Design University, because other people are out there or calling me, they're trying to make a buck. And sometimes they're trying to make a buck off material that's outdated and not even any good. You guys are providing so much free content. I mean, these videos on YouTube that are no cost to anybody, that are helping people pass the exam. That was another reason why I thought, you guys have given so much away. I have no issue paying just a couple bucks to get what else you guys have, because I know you guys, you're in it for the right reasons and your hearts are in it. You guys are more concerned about seeing me succeed and seeing others succeed than making a buck off of us. So
we appreciate
you didn't ask me to say that. I want to let everybody know. Corey did not even hint at that, but I wanted people to know that, because you guys have shown yourself to be a character organization, and it speaks volumes to what you're doing. And that's why so many people are passing, because of you guys.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that, David. We appreciate that. And I want to throw it out there that, yes, we want everyone to pass this exam. We want to get through that process. And then ultimately we want you to start the process of helping others. Like, that's really important to us. Doug and I, we are just retired trainers. We've done this and we've been in your same spot. And so we wish that we had these resources when we were studying for our exam years ago. But I appreciate you so much for taking the time to come on here and just share your experience and your study tips. I think they're going to be really, really helpful. And David, quickly tell us, how are you planning to use this certification, and why did you get your certification?
Yeah. So we go way back, 2019. stepped on the scale, and there was a 3 at the beginning of it. And
Wow.
yeah, and it wasn't a low 3. Yeah, I was over 300 pounds, heaviest of my life, and I decided something had to change. And so I really started getting interested in fitness. I started getting interested in nutrition, started working hard. My body fat percentage, I think then was about 35, 36%. And so over the course of a few years, I've lost about 85, 90 pounds. My body fat's down to about 18%. And so I thought, this is good, but there needs to be another step. And there's all these multi-level marketing groups out there, and they're putting out this information. And the more I would study and the more I'd hear their stuff, I thought, this stuff is conflicting with each other. Like you're actually giving bad advice. This is unhealthy advice, but I don't know what the answers are. And so I decided I want to learn, and I want to do this and find out the scientific answers, not the Google answers. And so that's what got me started on this journey. What's really pushed me forward, both of my parents are 68. My dad had back surgery. It didn't take. He's about to have back surgery again. My dad was constantly asking me questions about how can I get in shape? How much should I be lifting? Which exercises should I do? How many reps? Should I follow this exercise with this exercise? And I'd be like, I don't think so, but I need to find the answers. And so really this was about helping my parents first and foremost. And they've been asking me so many questions lately, and it's been a lot of fun. So this is going to start with them. I want to help them with their journey for the next few months. And as I do that, continue to learn, continue to grow, continue to figure out all the legal stuff that I need to figure out. And then come January, hopefully have some type of business model in place. And when people are ready to start those New Year's resolutions, I want to step in and help the people that were in the same position that I was in and say, hey, yeah, I know this is overwhelming. I know this is intimidating, but I've been there and I want to walk with you through this. Let's see how we can do this.
Awesome. Awesome, David. Thank you so much for sharing that. And we wish you the absolute best. Thank you so much for coming on here, sharing your experience. And we just hope that you help as many people as you possibly can. Take this information, celebrate this as, the starting point, the starting point to help as many people as you can. I have a gut feeling that you're going to help a lot of people. So good luck with everything. And please stay in touch with us. Help as many students. Stick around in the group. We appreciate you doing that, and keep in touch.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for what you guys do.
Yeah. Take care, David. Have a good night.
Thanks.